screening yesterday?
No, unfortunately not. I know.
Here or something?
Traffic out. Doggone traffic and everything. But, looking at the series and where it's going right now, what's going to be the dynamic with Raven coming down to Earth and Clark?
Well, here's my answer about that is, obviously it's going to complicate things in a good way, but the show's not about that, ever. Like, in my mind, this show, and I'm probably going to have to say this like again and again and again today, it's about survival. It's about the darkness that people sort of descend to in situations like this. And when you're worried about like the guy who's going to come out of the woods and throw a spear into your chest, or like where your next meal's going to come from, you're really not worrying about like who's fucking who. You know? Right? So, that's why, frankly, I'm trying to remember what you guys have seen, but in episode 5, when Raven comes down, that's been on television, so you guys have seen that. Eliza Clark sort of, she's upset, but she moves past it because she knows what's really important and what's really at stake. And that, to me, one of the things that makes the show different for the network a little bit is that I don't really play that love triangle as a foreground story. It's there, it's fun, it'll happen probably eventually, where it's going to get messy and complicated and, all of that, but it's always going to be secondary to the rest.
Good. So I'm like approved.
Well, sci-fi, to me, this show is I feel like we're doing legitimate horror stuff. And in the beginning, pilot episode 2, it was I read all of your stuff, and I know what the criticism is, and frankly, some of that would have been my own criticism. I would have been skeptical too at first, but I'm really beginning to sense out there that people are starting to see, and they're starting to get it. And what we're doing is something that is much closer to the shows that I love and aspire to. It's not a knock on anything that is on the network, because I think the network is great, but it's just different. It's darker, it's edgier, the violence is real, people die.
It's definitely a lot bleaker than I expected it. There have been several times where you guys have absolutely taken my hopes and fears and just squished everything together and made it such a more realistic depiction of such a bleak future.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like I talk about Walking Dead and Game of Thrones all the time. Those are my 2 favorite shows that are currently on, and that's the kind. I know we're on broadcast television, so it's a little different. We have standards and practices that are much more sort of stringent, but the network is encouraging and pushing. And Mark Pedowitz himself is like, after we killed 300 people on the Ark in episode 5,
that was so brutal.
I got an email from him saying, "Great, but you guys could go darker." I'm
what?
Like, how much darker can you get?
Seriously. So, you had them hang Murphy for a hot second. You had a little girl kill a guy.
They volunteered.
What?
It's good. It's
oh my god.
We really do. The thing that I'm excited about now is we've rounded the sort of bend in the story of the season, which is, at first it's all about the Lord of the Flies dynamic.
I was just going to say that.
And it's always in my mind been, are they going to be able to overcome their inner conflicts with each other, the Lord of the Flies in time to save themselves from the bigger conflict that's out there? And that bigger conflict that's out there is coming. And at the end of 5, we see the Grounder. And then, I don't know, you guys, none of you saw 6 and 7 screened yesterday? Okay.
No, but that's okay.
What I'm talking about. Really, we begin to tell that story now.
Okay, good.
And by the end of the season, it's like, forget about it.
So are you going to have the kids from the Ark and the Grounders? I mean, obviously they're going to have a lot more interactions in the coming rest of the season. How much conflict? I mean, is there going to be like a resentment storyline from the Grounders versus?
You could think of it as we are invading their territory. We feel like they're the bad guys because they're coming after our people, our characters. But we landed in their backyard. We are doing things that are being perceived by them as provocative. And so they're attacking. When we first, I mean, only in 5 we just caught a glimpse of him, but that grounder, who eventually will be named and eventually is a big part of the show going forward, he's a warrior. You know, and you have to ask the question, it's not like he just became a warrior to fight these kids that landed from space. They were fighting somebody else before they arrived. And all of that gets revealed. We tell the story. By the end of the season, we'll understand the dynamics on the ground, who's out there, who's good, who's bad and who's worse.
Yeah.
And who's really worse. I mean, there's like levels of
Now, is Kane really sincere in working with the Chancellor? Because when we saw the last episode that we saw on TV, is he really sincere, or is that an act to thwart his agenda, what he really wants to do?
You know what, Kane, and I wish Ian was here to talk about it himself, but he's in Hawaii, unfortunately, where he lives. Lucky man.
I was going to say, I'm like, lost anyone?
I know, the horror.
But Kane has never been a villain in my mind.
Right.
Like, I've always seen him as a pragmatist. And he needs, he's all about, I will do whatever it takes. He says it in the pilot. You know, if I have to take us down to a cosmic Adam and Eve, I'll do it. Like, he's so convinced in his rightness. He's so convinced that the Earth isn't survivable, that the kids are dead, you know, that the Ark is dying, and so he needs to take us down. Otherwise, the human race will end. That's his firm belief. And as long as that's true in his mind, he's doing the right thing.
Do you think that has...
The question is what happens when he realizes he's wrong.
It's going to be so good.
He's built his whole life on this foundation of, you know, we need to do this thing. That's the story that we tell with him going forward. Because obviously in 5, at the very end of the episode, they see the things. And so now, after they've killed those people, right? Like, he could live with himself for having done that because he was right. But now he's going to have to deal with, oh shit, what have I done? And that's going to break him. And we're going to see some interesting things from him.
Question about the flashbacks. And you guys have shown it a few times, or we should see one flashbacks in the past, or more years in the past, kind of explain.
Yeah, well, episode 6 is a flashback up to the arc. You know, one of the reasons why we do that is obviously it's a good way to sort of add some details, some flesh to the bone of the characters, right? Because we find out who they are. That's obvious. But in this case, also, I thought interesting by design. We just left the arc in a really bad place, and now we leave that story for right. So people have to sort of now wonder, oh my God, what's the fallout? Right? We tell that in 7. In 6, it's an all flashback episode on the arc, and it's the Octavia Bellamy story.
Okay, so, good.
And I'm not giving too much away because everybody who was here last night saw and I think we're going to show it. Mark, are we showing the beginning of 6?
We're showing the teaser of episode 6.
So you guys will see in the beginning of the episode is Octavia's birth. And
awesome.
So, and so it's a different kind of flashback than the one previously, but it really tells us how she lived under the floor, what was that about. She doesn't really live under the floor. It's basically like whenever there's an inspection, they open the door, and she gets under and hides. And it's like the Inglourious Bastard milk scene is what we were going for, you know?
Thank you for having such crazy and like well-rounded and gritty characters. I really love everything about it.
Great. It's amazing. It's just real sci-fi.
Great. Well, that's it. You know, I really, again, it's like I'm a hardcore sci-fi fan, and from the beginning wanted to do it in that way, and have been totally supported by the network. And I think it's a little bit of a process of, okay, there's a lot of skeptics out there at the beginning, but I'm starting to, as I said, I'm starting to see people coming around. Like,
you're nailing it.
There have been people who have been really positive, great reviews from the beginning, and I love that, obviously. But then there's like the guys that were like, I fucking hate the CW, or like, fuck this show, it's bullshit, there's love triangles, black, too many pretty people. And now I'm seeing some of those people are saying, yeah, I get it, it's kind of cool. And, you know, that to me is like more exciting than like the A+ review, you know what I mean? So hopefully that'll keep happening. I personally think if somebody gave it a chance and went with us and saw where we're taking it, I mean, these pretty people we're uglying them up. Like, they're bloody and muddy and you know, to me, they look better.
They're doing the hard stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, again, violence is real. It has real ramifications. Anyway,
I
Awesome.
love it. I'm a fan.
great.
Totally.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Oh wait, one more question.
When you actually, you introduced a few people from the 100, some of like the real girl and everything. Will you start to introduce more?
Yeah, I mean, one of the cool things from where I sit about having 100 is, I don't like to say this lightly because it's become a thing, like we're the show that kills people. Like someone was a headline, teenagers will die and you'll love it. But and so I do not take it lightly, but it is true that we can lose people because there's 100. Like in Lost, they found the tail section in season whatever.
Oh my God, like 1,000
people that we could tell stories with. We being them, I wasn't involved in Lost. Same thing here. There's an endless ability for us to go to that well. But also we have the Arc, which has tons of people on it, and we will meet people throughout the season. The answer to your question is yes. We will meet other characters and we will flesh out other characters.
Cool.
And no one is.
Oh, you're so Whedon.
I mean, again, it's like I think that's what makes it fresh.
Yeah.
Nobody thought we were going to kill Wells in 3, and I loved him. I thought he was great.
Me too.
I lived with him a long time. In Game of Thrones, they killed Ned Stark in episode 9. We killed Wells in episode 3. I was thinking, I don't think people care enough in episode 3 to really have the impact that Ned Stark had in 9, but I felt like it made a statement that I think we needed to make, which was, on HBO they can do that. HBO, you're not surprised, but on the CW, maybe it's not so. Again, maybe they do because I don't watch all the shows, but it feels to me like that was a surprising move. That was a statement.
And it was brutal.
5 was a statement with the culling, which was something in my mind from the beginning. I knew that was happening, and that the signal was going to come too late. And so, again, it's just about trying to keep it alive, keep it fresh. So.
Gosh, so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it's so good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll let you talk to the interesting people.
Stop. You were great.